child. Dry your crying eyes. How can I explain the fear you feel inside? 'Cause you were born into this evil world where man is killing man and no one knows just why.
Monday, June 16th is the last day that Caylee Anthony's grandparents saw the little girl. And tonight we have detailed phone records of who Caylee's now jailed mother was calling that day. Joining us live on the ground in Orlando is On the Record producer Steph Watts. All right, Steph, let's talk about these phone records. Can you tell me, you're going to go ahead and refer to the records itself, but what happened on Monday beginning about 4:10? Well, actually, let me back up. It started at 3:03 p.m.
Okay, Greta, and let me just back up a little bit for you, just to set the stage a little bit. Don't forget, at 12:50, just before 1 p.m., George claims that he saw Casey and Caylee leave the house. Then George himself leaves the house at 2:30. Now, let's jump ahead. Casey's making phone calls on her cell phone. 3:03 p.m., she calls her dad on his cell phone. 4:10, she calls her mom at work. 4:11, she calls her mom on her cell phone. 4:13, she calls her mom on her cell phone. 4:14, she calls her mom at work. 4:19, she calls Tony Lazzaro. 4:21, she calls Jesse Grund. 4:24, mom on her cell. 6:32, mom on home phone. 6:33, voicemail. 7:06, mom home. And 7:20, she calls her friend Amy. Now, if you notice, Greta, these calls that are a minute apart, if I call you and I get your voicemail and I hang up, that registers as a minute.
All right, tell me, let's get the names. Tony Lazzaro, that's her boyfriend?
Yeah, Tony Anthony is the boyfriend who is the promoter at Club Fusion, which we're going to take a look at a little later on in the show. And Amy Huzanga is the girl that the mother found the resume in the car, and she was the one who took Cindy to where Casey was. And Casey was using her car that week while Amy was away, and unfortunately Casey also stole money from her and checks.
All right. Now, in all fairness, if you looked at my phone records, you know, it might show a flurry of phone calls as well. But nonetheless, it's just a piece of the puzzle. All right, now, you don't have anything for the next day, Tuesday, do you? You suddenly jumped to Wednesday. Why don't you have Tuesday's records?
Well, Greta, it's interesting because the 17th seems to be sort of a blurry day for us in this timeline. As you know, you and I are working this story. We're trying to put this timeline together. The 17th, we haven't come up with the records yet. We don't know what was happening on the 17th. Of course, obviously very curious as to what was going on the 17th. The next phone records we have are the 18th. And again, that date is significant because that's the date that Casey borrowed the shovel from the neighbor.
All right, and so give me the list of calls on the 18th for which we have records.
Sure. Again, on the 18th, and again, we don't know what time exactly she borrowed the shovel from, but on the 18th at 12:33 p.m., she calls mom at home. 12:34, mom's cell. 12:35, mom at home. 12:36, dad's cell. 1:09, mom's cell. 1:11, mom home.
All right. Now, in terms of the June 16th phone calls that you first recited, do you have any idea whether it pinged off a tower near her home to indicate that she was likely making those, or could have been making those calls from home?
Well, that's a good question, Greta, and I'm sure investigators are taking a look at that. They obviously haven't released that information to us because it's part of their ongoing investigation. But now remember, the last phone call she made was 7:20 to Amy. There's no incoming or outgoing calls on Casey's cell phone, Greta, until 11 a.m. the next day.
All right, Steph, thank you.